Hi, I ran out of time in the last video, so while the video was processing, I added some more of the cast shadows and the shadow shapes of the still life, and just for the sake of time, I will briefly go over what I did and then try to move on to the next step so that I don't run out of time in this tutorial in the middle. So what I did was I went over it first with the black, and then I added some green, some of this dark green to those dark areas, and then I just kept moving throughout the painting, and adding that green helps to create harmony in various places when you repeat a color. So you could add a little here, and I'm just using light pressure at this point. I don't want to fill in all of the grain in my paper. Then I'm going to go over that with some blue. And just keep moving throughout the piece, like so. And the last step is to define those darkest areas that I see. If you look at that page from your book, you can see some of the really dark areas. Some of the edges are right underneath here. So that's one of the darkest areas. And then right underneath your lemon is another really dark value. And then over here I indicated the edges with some black just so you could see it better. Here's another really dark value right underneath that melon. And then around the edge of the melon is a pretty dark value. And then over here on this edge, and then one right here. So now you have a range of values. You have really dark, medium, and then lighter values as it's fading out. So I'm going to go ahead and try to start adding some of those medium values. So now we've moved on to step 3 in your book. So we are going to start with a medium dark olive green and a deep orange. So the if you don't have orange, you can always mix it up. And do want to be sure your paper doesn't get too dusty. Great. So again, to mix up orange, a little bit of red, a little bit of yellow, maybe a little more yellow. And then to get that olive green, if you don't have it, you could lay down some dark green and then add some red to the green. That will neutralize it and give you more of a olive green type of color. And if it gets too dark, you could just add a little bit of yellow ochre just to brighten it up a little. And, you know, just play with it, add some blue until you get, you know, something you want. So if you have paint chips, that can be a good little technique to use to match a color. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm starting with the dark green to block in the background. So now we're getting into something called the local color. So I'm just going to move throughout the painting. Try to work a little faster. Okay, so now I'm going to go over it with the red to desaturate that green. So that is creating more of an olive color by adding the complement, which is the opposite of that color. So anytime you add red to green or yellow to violet, you get a muted color when you add those two complements together. That's how you create a neutral. So it's kind of a neutral green. So you might have to fiddle with it until you get something you like. And it might not look exactly like what's in your book, but it's more about value than it is about exact color. So I'm adding some yellow ochre to brighten that green up a little to the mixture of the red and green. So that just lightens it up without having to rush to the white. Okay. So let's go ahead and try to get in that orange. So I'm laying in some red very lightly on the melon. Then go over it again with, then add some yellow to your red to make an orange. See, there's the orange. Okay, just keep moving throughout your painting. Now I'm going to go into that darkest of colors, which is that it's like a dark green, the lemon rind. And I'm going to move on and try to fill in that orange area. So now I've moved on to step 4 of adding the light values. Hold that up. So I'm going to try to block in the rest of that orange. Some more red. More yellow. And I'm just using light pressure, and I'm being careful about those darker areas. I don't want any unwanted colors, so I'm being mindful about where I put that yellow pastel. So I'm not mixing it in right now with that green very much. Maybe just a little bit to create a bit of a gradient going from one color to the other. And just keep moving around. It's really important to just keep moving around with that pastel and not get stuck in an area. It'll help you move faster, and it will help you see the overall picture. So I'm going to really darken up that green by adding some dark blue to the mix. So I added a dark blue here where that dark green was, and that darkened it up without having to rush to the black. So sometimes you can just add a dark blue or a dark green to get a darker value. And even if you do add some black, I would mix it with blue or green just to keep it from getting too